Hello, welcome to my adoption channel. Today we're going to talk about hoarding types of behaviour from adopted children. So if you've noticed that your adopted child likes to squirrel things away, likes to have lots of objects around, and there's lots of clutter around, but it's never enough, then this video is going to be interesting for you. If you're on the adoption process, on the adoption journey, then it might be that you end up with a child with these behaviours, so this video is still going to be useful for you. So we're going to look at the reasons why this happens, we're going to look at what it looks like in the home, and we're going to look at some ways to help these adopted children. So stick around to the end, because then I'm going to give you some tips and advice as to what you can do to help. So the first thing to say about it is, one of the key things that you can see in the adopted child is almost the objects become more important than people in a way. They become like an emotional prop that they have to have more and they have to have lots of, and it's almost replacing some of those relationships and those key interactions that they might have to have with other people, and it's giving them that emotional crutch and support. Many of our adopted children will have insecure attachment, and therefore this would be kind of a feature of that insecure attachment, and that difficulty trusting adults and having relationships then might play out into wanting more material goods and wanting lots of it. It's also a very quick satisfaction thing, isn't it? You go to a shop, you pick up something small of little value, but it gives you that instant gratification and satisfaction. You don't have to wait for it, you don't have to work on it, you don't have to develop it. So that's another reason why adopted children sometimes want objects and toys and materials rather than to invest in relationships, because it's a quicker, easier way for them to get some satisfaction. It can be deeper than that, in the sense that it's a misplaced understanding of what love, relationship, attachment, bonding really means, that they will in some way be satisfied properly, fully, by having lots of things, lots of material possessions. I mean, to be fair, that's not just the thing that happens with children or adopted children. That can be seen in adults as well, the constant need to better oneself, to have more possessions. And you might notice them getting into repetitive patterns about what they need to have near them, how much they need to have of it, and actually keeping on taking things kind of back to their room because they need to have things in certain places. So those repetitive patterns might form part of their routines. And whilst we recognise that this might happen and that this is not necessarily hugely problematic, it's going to be important for us to try and break some of those routines that aren't necessarily healthy. And of course, another reason might well be just quite simply they've been very neglected. When they're younger, they haven't had those things, they've not had enough food, they've not had the resources, the stimulation, the toys, and all of a sudden they're in a home where they can have it and they can have more of it. And so that gratification grows and grows and grows. When they had that emptiness through neglects of not having enough food, that emptiness of not having enough to do, not having enough stimulation, and all of a sudden now they have it, they don't want to let go of it, they don't want it to stop, they want more of that thing, more of those things. So being as often with our adopted children, this may well be an emotional prop to hoard things and actually take things away from different places. We need to deal with it really, really carefully. It's not enough just to say, I want you to stop doing that, I want you to stop asking for that, I want you to stop thinking you can have more of everything, I want you to stop taking things from the cupboard. It's not going to be enough for us to just say that. We're going to have to put things in place to help them. So what might it look like in the home? Well, it can be very frustrating for parents, because actually adopted children can do all sorts of things when it comes to hoarding. So what it can look like, and we do have the situation in our house, is the way that they want to fill every space that they have in their room, or even wherever else, in fact. So one of our sons wants to fill every space in his room, every drawer, everything he has in his room, it will be cluttered on the sides. He'll want lots of objects everywhere that he can see, and then everything else will be filled as well. Now those objects may hold no interest for him whatsoever once he actually has them, but he likes to lay out it all there, and it can become very, very chaotic. So one thing I'll say is what it looks like, it can look very chaotic. It can be very systematic as well, so that when you find that you go out with your child anywhere, they're already looking what they can have, what they can buy. It can also be with the food as well, that you might find that you provide plenty of things for them to eat, plenty of snacks, but actually you find you go to the room and there you are, there's lots of wrappers, lots of extra food has been taken into the room, and it's very frustrating because things are all getting muddled and chaotic. And generally speaking, you'd expect their bedrooms to look pretty disorganized, but everything everywhere. And we also find in our house as well that the objects end up coming down into different areas of the house. So we've got to be really careful that these little objects don't end up all over the table or, you know, our eating area, our kitchen. We've got to kind of be on it really. And you will find that your child will look for every opportunity to buy something, have something, eat something, take something. And it can actually tip over into them taking things from other people. Now, in my experience, there's no real acknowledgement or understanding of what that really means for the other person. It's about seeing something, feeling that they need that thing because somebody else has it, and then trying to get a hold of it for themselves. So not so much that they are thinking in terms of stealing, but actually thinking in terms of the fact they really need that object. They need that for their emotional comfort. So it can tip over into kind of taking things from other people or taking things from around the house which aren't theirs. If you do have a child that's a hoarder or is becoming very chaotic with objects and things, to be honest, there's no end to it. Like, it's not just going to stop, they're going to carry on, and so therefore you need to support them. So here are some ways that you can actually physically do that, help them through some of these issues that they might be having. The first obvious thing to say to them is that you need to explain to them what might be happening. You're not going to be able to go into lots of detail, but you might want to explain to them that these things that they kind of want to keep having and buying might be as a result of them feeling unsettled or needing these objects as comfort. So they may not agree with you, but of course to have that conversation openly with them to start with, to explain that it's not that you're just going to say no to things, but there is reasons why you want them to kind of curb those behaviours. It's really important that you get that conversation in to start with. What's worked for us is we've arranged like clutter-free zones, so places where our son can have kind of like a little bit of clutter and disorganisation and little piles of things everywhere, especially in his bedroom, but areas where we say no, that's not going to happen. So for example, in his room we will have places where he can lay things out. I'll keep an eye on it though, because after a while it does build up to a point where you can't have any more. And then there'll be places where I will be saying to him, no, I don't want you to have any stuff there. I don't want you to be storing stuff under your bed. I don't want you to be putting extra stuff around your computer. We're going to have that as a clutter-free zone. And I kind of explain it to him as well, that he will be able to think straight. He will be able to find things if we leave certain spaces clear. When it comes to the house as well, we're quite firm about where these objects end up. So I'll find over a couple of days there'll be a few things left on the side. I'm in the dining room at the moment, and we've got a kitchen diner, and little things will come down, little men, little objects, bits of paper, pens, pencils. Every child does this, I realise, but if I was to allow the son to carry on, nearly every area in the house would be filled with his little bits and pieces. And because he has that hoarding behaviour in the sense that he needs to see those things, he needs to be able to touch those things, and this could be part of his other anxieties and behaviours as well, but it's all about him being able to see those things. And so we have areas in the house where things just aren't allowed to be, like the clutter, the hoarding is not allowed to happen. So places where he can kind of hoard and clutter, and places where he can, and that's what I suggest you do with your adopted child. Something that we've really had to establish is to check his room regularly, and I'm talking about him because the other son doesn't do it, and you might find that you have children that do, children who don't, that come in for adoption. But for this son we have to check his room quite regularly, because in the past we have found there have been objects from his brother's room in his room, there's been objects from the house that belong to one of us in his room, and also some stuff from school as well, or he's taken stuff from children from school. And so we've had to kind of check it really regularly. Not because in the beginning it was for me that I felt like I needed to catch him out and talk to him about it, but not now. Now I have that understanding there. It's about kind of reminding him that a lot of these objects aren't needed, and that they have come from somewhere else, therefore they don't belong to him. And I sort it out so that we don't have a situation where this is building up, and he is reminded that things belong to him in his room, and the other things around the house, his brothers, at school, belong to other people, and that if he wants something, he needs to come to me to ask for it. He can't just take it and hoard it into his bedroom. Really helpful thing as well is to allow them times when you almost allow them to hoard. So you allow them to have boxes of stuff where they can take stuff out of and then take it into the room. So I might have collections of things that kind of aren't necessarily valuable in the house, but things that I might know that he really likes, and I'll let him have a little rummage around. So have yourself a box available with knickknacks and bits and bobs that your child has not been able to access before, and allow them every now and again to have a real rummage around and to do a little bit of hoarding. take a few objects up to their room that they think are kind of like new and different, because from my experience as well, it doesn't really matter to my son whether we go out and buy something new for him or whether we actually just give him some options around the house or stuff that we already had. It's because it's new and because it's a hoarding habit that he actually is quite happy as well to take something from this box up to his room. Do the same with food as well. Be really careful that you don't leave an open-ended situation where a child can just access food all the time. Again, because in my experience, they will just access food all the time and they might well hoard food into their bedrooms, and then you don't know what they're having, you don't know what they're eating. But for some children who've got a little bit more control, you just have snacking times, and again, you just keep an eye on whether things are ending up in the room, because if they are, you may have to move those snacks higher and out of reach. But to bring out a snack box at regular intervals in between meal times, because neglected children need to know that food is going to be there for them. So if you get that box out and you just let them have a rummage and you just let them kind of like help themselves to stuff, it takes away that desire and need to do that anyway, because they're going to need to do that anyway with objects or food, and you're taking away that kind of desire to do it kind of behind your back. For our children, we need to understand the panic that they have when they can't have things, particularly if they've been neglected and abused, the panic that they have when they feel hungry, the panic that they almost have when you say no to them. I know that my son has said, when you say no to me, I have a panicky feeling, even if he knows it's right, even if I know it's right. It's the panic of kind of not having that security blanket, not having those things available readily that they can kind of squirrel away to make them feel better. And finally, and most importantly, is actually to have attachment toys or toy, because that attachment toy or toys will give that level of comfort that will really help the situation with hoarding. So it could be that you need to have several toys or teddies that become those special toy or teddies, and they can be with them in the bedroom, and they can go with them if they're quite young. They can go different places with them to give them that feeling of comfort that they have an object that they're going to hold or they're going to cuddle or that belongs to them. It's a case of kind of like wanting those things to belong to them that then make them feel less insecure than what they do when they don't have those things to hold. So guys, I hope that helps you. I will link another hoarding video that I did quite a long time ago, but I will also link the playlist about children's behaviours. You'll see at the end of the screen, it's a whole playlist of videos for you to tap into. If you've not found me before, please subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you on my next video all about adoption. Thank you.